Hello and welcome, I'm Oles Gerjuk and you're watching Head to Head with UATV. The whole civilized world is striving for an electronic future. Today we're talking about the prospects for implementing electronic justice here in Ukraine. What experience can Ukraine borrow from neighboring countries, in particular from Estonia, in introducing electronic government systems? To talk more about this, we welcome to our studio today Ivar Tallo, key international expert of the EU Project Pravo-Justice. Hello and thank you for joining us today.
Hello.
So, all the efforts on building a justice in Ukraine are united into one strategy, right? The United Judiciary Informational Telecommunication System, UJITS.
That is just for the court system. Actually, there is a difference. I mean, there is executive with the Ministry of Justice, with registries, with registration processes of property and so on, which has nothing to do with this. And then there is a court system which is separate. There is this High Council of Justice, court administration, courts themselves, and the servicing for those systems, it is this ICIT system, the United Information System for Telecommunication. So there are
e-justice is broader than this UJIT strategy.
Well, it is just, think of it first as just digitization of the justice sector.
Mm-hmm. So could you please tell us how is the implementation of this going in Ukraine?
Well, as many of other reforms, I mean, people want it. So there is clear political will in this sense, but then when you go into the details, and devil is always in details, then it is going to be much more difficult. And so there is impatience, because for many years reforms were not satisfactory to people, so people demand more, and but this more means a change of the culture. It's not really the technology. It's not buying the iPhone and switching it on. It is learning how to use it, because you know, if you get the new computer or you get your iPhone, there are so many more functions that you can do with it, which you are not used to. Maybe I don't know. Are you using Siri? I mean, are you using this voice command system? Very few people are, but it is a very fancy system in these new parts of new technology.
Speaking about details, let's talk about this UJITS. So as far as I understand, this is like electronic court that people can submit the documents on the website. They can review the the stage that the court processes on online, right? So, and also the courts would be more operating electronically. I mean,
yes,
having some database.
But let me help you. I mean, first, Ukraine is not some African country. Ukraine's courts are running on information systems already. I mean, there are, the data is electronic, the judges are using electronic systems and so on. The question is that the overall infrastructure, the understanding, the architecture of the information systems is kind of based on the concrete court and concrete whatever the abilities of this court are. Now it is visioned to be in the cloud. So you can have much more sort of mobility with the data, mobility with the information. You can have what is a dream. Well, it is reality in Estonia, but still people are thinking that it's impossible in Ukraine. A judge can take a laptop with him and work from, let's say, beach in Odessa.
From the seaside.
Yes.
Okay, tell us about all the provisions of this UJITS strategy.
To tell you all, well,
about
you
the
don't
main
have,
ones. I mean, the audience could understand why is it beneficial.
Well, first it is submission of data. I mean, for you to submit data, you don't have to figure out anymore which court and what documents. It can be all pretty much automated and done in a way that it is intuitive and possible to do for the person. also for the big enterprises. Let's say I was just talking in this early summer with the head of legal department of Ukrgas or something like that. And he said he has so many documents, so many complaints that he needs to ship to the court that he will 240,000 pages. He said, well, that would be like 2 Kamaz trucks to take the paper to the court. Right?
And 2 rooms to store these documents.
Yes, exactly. So it is much better to do this online, and it will save the money to everybody. So this is the first module. It's kind of how you submit the documents there. Then there is a question how you work with this information that is in the system. For example, for the court system, very important module is how you distribute the cases, so that it wouldn't be somebody's arbitrary solution that your case will go to this judge and your case goes to the other judge. So there are algorithms that people have thought of how this data could be distributed automatically to the workload, with the experience of judge and everything taken into account. There are different other ways how you then work as a judge or judge assistant work with this data that can be improved considerably. One of the big things that the judges are using and the people in court, they need to know if there are similar cases decided or have been decided before. So
the system would show the similar cases.
Yes.
But there should be a special software developed, right?
Correct. There are lots of different softwares that is developed, and let's say this basic software now it is called D3 in Ukraine, which the courts work on. It is from 2004. It's 15 years ago. It's age old. It just can't work that way, so it needs upgrading. So there are lots of different things that need to be done, but the main thing is a change from this kind of land-based into cloud-based architecture.
This is the main thing, and also, as far as I read, the courtrooms should be equipped with some audio and video fixation equipment, right?
Yes, and there is a lot of such an equipment in Ukraine. I actually remember myself evaluating Ukrainian company software for this in Kazakhstan in 2011 already. So your companies were doing it in other countries very successfully.
But we're not doing it for ourselves.
Exactly. So now we are finally getting there that you are actually improving your own life.
And what about these 2 data centers? One of them should be a main data center, another one is a reserve one.
Correct. I mean, the more our life depends on cyber things or digital, the more we need to think about the security. We can't just let it happen that justice would not be served for 2 weeks until some people will deal with the security issues. So it has to be working all the time, and it's a tall order because it's not friendly world, the cyber world.
Of course. Cyber threat is one of the main dangers nowadays. But well, it looks like to me that in Ukraine this digitalization of courts goes with sweat and pain, because the launch of this UJITS system was scheduled on March 1st, 2019, this year, but didn't happen until now, and probably is not about to happen in nearest future, because not many things are ready. So you agree with that? What are these stumbling blocks? What are the problems about this?
If they started, I mean, the system was decided to be upgraded in 2017 in October. And so this kind of major undertaking cannot be done in a year. I mean, even the money that is needed to to sort of finance this upgrading needs to be first put into the budget, and then the budget decided, and then the money distributed, and procurement to be done. Everything takes time.
Of course, but then there was the date scheduled.
The idea, there were two mistakes with the ECITS development, by and large. One was that it was extremely short time, and I'm afraid that this Zelensky team is now going to repeat kind of the same mistakes that they expect, that they have to deliver very shortly, by the end of year something, and it doesn't work in the government that fast. So if we think of the other countries' experience, in Estonia, to do this kind of system, what we are proud of now, and the rest of the world looks at, it took us 10 years.
10 years to implement
and for
this.
a small country with 1.3 million people.
Right.
So you have country with 40 million people, and with all these oblasts, and I mean...
And mountains of documentation and paperwork to scan and to establish a database or to establish the software. Of course, Ukraine is, is developing an IT sector very progressively, but in a private sector, not in the state one.
So that needs time first.
Right.
So, and the second thing, what was a mistake, that technical people thought that they don't have to talk to the users. And the modern way of understanding is user centricity. We put the user in the center of these IT systems, that users are defining what their needs are, not some kind of technology guide.
But this is like a marketing.
No, it's not a marketing question. It is
like
a question,
analysts.
who is... no, business analysts help us to do that. But I mean, the system has to serve you who are using the system.
Right.
So that wasn't done, and the users were not sort of involved in the process. So we are trying to change that.
Well, I've read an interesting article by Bogdan Khmelnytsky, lawyer and coordinator at Stop Corruption NGO, and I want to just to let our audience know a few aspects of this part of e-justice, so to say, reform, that it appears that the instruction for the operation of this united judiciary informational telecommunication system and its connection with different databases or registers or bodies or system have not been adopted or even written.
A draft was written, but it was not passed, yes. But it was because at first, I mean, all this process, the idea in the previous High Council of Justice, who is the main body deciding on this, they have a working group that is dealing with ECITS development questions. And their understanding was that, you just need this new gadget or a new system, and then you kind of like, you get the new car, you take a key and you start it, and then you can drive. But it isn't that way. If we talk about this kind of complicated systems, you actually have to test the system a long time. You have to teach users to use it, and all these things were not done. So
I understand that now the problem is that we schedule our expectations too early, and we schedule the launch of this system too early. I get this, and this is very logical, but let's discuss probably the repercussions already after failure of launching the system on March 1st. More than half a year have passed, and we do have some results. Of course, that Ukraine was not ready, as you say, to implement it so fast because it is too fast. But now we see that some courtrooms are still without computers. There are not enough scanners or not enough employees to scan, as I said, mountains of documents, tons of documents. There is not enough equipment for this audio or video fixation, and several procurement at Prozoro also went wrong or failed, and that reserve data center doesn't exist. And from what I know, there are even some criminal proceedings already against some officials from the state court administration about all of this, so to say, reform. So I know that Pravo-Justice consults the High Council of Judges, the state administration, court administration, and of course, you have some kind of dialogue with them. Could you please share with us what is the latest, or what sort of plan do they have on implementation of this reform, and do they hear your advice that the schedule is too soon to schedule anything?
Yes, well, first, let me say that we haven't had a problem talking to them at all. So we've been talking to all 5 members of this part. I mean, there is High Council of Justice, then there is this Court State Administration, then there was a High Qualification Commission for Judges, then there was this Court Enterprise. So there are different players. And yes, well, one of the biggest problems was over the last half a year and since March, there has been changes of the leadership.
Yes.
So
we had elections, 2 rounds of presidential elections.
No, but let's leave. These are different. I mean, the court system has their own elections.
True.
Also.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it is. They were also there, and there were incriminations: who did something wrong, who was guilty, and so on. So last half a year has been sort of selecting, adjusting to the new leadership. So now that the new leadership is in place, mostly, we expect that the changes are going to be sped up, but it won't be quick anyway.
Okay.
Yes, what we do is we try to teach how the processes should be set up so that you wouldn't go wrong that much as you did before.
What were the mistakes in Estonia when it took you 10 years to implement this e-justice?
Well, it was a little bit differently constructed. I mean, one of the big things hasn't been even started here yet. What we consider part of e-justice is that we created this kind of system that was the data where it was possible to access, or it was just, you introduce data once. Like a police when they start the investigation, like the prosecutors when they check the investigation, send the materials to the court. And the court who works with this, the lawyers who are working with this. So everybody has their rights and they are all using the same information system. So what took us so long, actually, one part of it was that whether this information should be built from zero, who should take a lead, whether it is the Ministry of Justice or whether it is the Ministry of Interior or whether it is a court system and so on, to just sort of
distribute
yes.
the powers.
Well, in your country at the moment, we are not yet talking about this part. We are just talking about the court system, information system. I mean, there is a separate systems for the police and separate systems for the prosecutor's office. And we are kind of trying to, as a EU project, we're trying to explain that, look, if you do it all, it would be even better looking into the future. So these kind of, not the technology, but this kind of human interaction and organization are always the most time-consuming, because we are talking about the change of culture.
And the most efficient if it's set up in the right way. Well, thank you so much for your comments. I hope to have another dialogue on this topic and other aspects of e-justice, implementing e-justice in Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was Ivar Tallo, key international expert of the EU Project Pravo-Justice. Thank you for watching Head to Head. I'm Oles Gerjuk. Goodbye.